Yo, what up? Toshi here. Today I'm not in my usual recording, I'm actually visiting family once again because it is the holidays. So if the audio does sound a little different from the normal setup, well that's why. But today I want to talk about Silverwolf and why she is the only must-pull character in Honkai Star Rail. I hope you had a good weekend and it is time to start the barrage of videos I have planned for you all. Now, we made a video on Silverwolf recently about her pull value, and I think that's a better video than today's video will cover with the character. So definitely check that out if you haven't already and you want to know more about Silverwolf. But as a character overall, her value still has remained the same ever since her release, and she's only going to get better as we receive more characters that also utilize this character in every single way possible. And Dr. Ratio is the best example of that. That character really likes Silverwolf, and there's for many reasons. The main reason being that he's a Hun character. Hun characters are known for their single target damage output, and since he is a single target damage dealer, he likes characters that enable him to do more damage, increase his own damage output, such as Silverwolf, putting debuffs onto that enemy in single target fights. So whatever enemy he hits is the one Silverwolf is going to apply the debuffs into. And since he's a character unlike Seal that does not have pseudo AoE, he can utilize Silverwolf just as much as Seal. I would say most of the time even better. Now, if we ignore Silverwolf's weakness implant effect, because that's going to be one of the things that does not synergize as well as other things with Dr. Ratio. Dr. Ratio is going to appreciate all the debuffs Silverwolf can apply on the enemy in her single turn. She can apply a decreased speed, a decreased attack, a decreased defense, another decreased defense, and all of these resist reductions all into an enemy in a single turn. That's what makes her so freaking good. Now, if you take into consideration that there is a chance that you do double up on some of those debuffs, you'll still at the very least guarantee 3 debuffs on the enemy on your first turn. That is a huge thing that Silverwolf can do versus any other character in the game right now. Now, if we look at a character like Pela can do a defense shred, another defense shred, and she can reduce the enemy's ice resistance. So that's pretty much 3 debuffs right there. But if you take into consideration that applies not only having a E4 Pela, but you also take into consideration you need a 4-star light code that isn't as valuable as some other light cones, especially in the setting with Dr. Ratio, because he's a character that benefits from single target fights anyways in blast scenarios. You're not really going to like Pela as much as Silverwolf, but she still is a very solid free play alternative for the character. So for all of us to receive a Dr. Ratio for free, that's an amazing thing that Hoyoverse has done for the community. I think it's awesome. But it does make sense to announce it right now when we have Silverwolf on the current banner. And since she's on the current banner and you are getting a free Dr. Ratio, that means her value as a character skyrockets even more. Now, there is various other ways of being able to apply debuffs to the enemy. You can do a defense down, a speed decrease, and a vulnerability increase on the enemy as well with, well, that is 3 debuffs this character can apply to the enemy. That's what makes him a very nice character to use alongside Dr. Ratio. Take into consideration he'll help him in those AoE fights, breaking the weakness of all the enemies in the AoE settings, and he also does help with contributing to the team's damage overall. So Well is a very nice character to pair alongside Dr. Ratio. So we did cover this in the last video, and this definitely is going to be the team I would use with Dr. Ratio. I mean, you have Yukong buffing your damage by a huge amount, and then you have Silverwolf being able to apply all of those debuffs that Dr. Ratio needs in order to do as much damage as he can to the enemy. You have Luocha here, who is one of the safest defensive options in the game. He's very nice here if you take into consideration that he is imaginary just like all the other characters, so he helps with applying that imaginary weakness to the enemy, which will greatly increase Dr. Ratio's damage against enemies that are not weak to that element. But many players may not have that option, and I do get that, so having a full imaginary team is still going to be very good for the character. This is a team I used with Daniel before, and this is still going to be a good team for Dr. Ratio nonetheless, because you do have a lot of debuffs you can apply to the enemy, and Dr. Ratio does have debuffs on his own kit as well. So Silverwolf just makes things a lot more easier. She has so many debuffs that she can apply by just literally hitting the enemy in the first turn. If you take into consideration that other characters can apply a nice amount of debuffs to the enemy as well, but they have to go over hoops versus Silverwolf not having to do so. That makes her a much better character in that regard. And I do understand we're comparing a 5-star limited character to standard and even 4-star characters, but that's just the beauty of having a character like Silverwolf on your account. And I did want to talk about Mono Quantum as well, because Silverwolf in this team is a must pull. Having this character in this team allows you to essentially have the team function as intended. If you don't have Silverwolf, then this team doesn't work. And that's what I think is the beauty of this character. Now you could be like Toshi. What if you just bring Quantum characters to enemies that are weak to Quantum? Yes, while that's true, we haven't been in a quantum memories of chaos for quite a while now. It's just that some enemies are weak to quantum, whereas most of the enemies have been weak to ice and imaginary. But being able to have Soulwolf alongside your damage dealers like Seal and QQ means that you can bring these characters every single memories of chaos, not have to worry about the weaknesses of the enemy. And we're going to get to the point where content is harder. So you're going to want to utilize more damage against enemies that are going to have higher defenses, higher HP pools, and more resistances overall. So having a character that applies that quantum, and for a character like Seal, is a game changer, especially against enemies that have tons of defense, and Soulwolf allows your characters to ignore the enemy's defense with the quantum set, while reducing their defenses as well. So she becomes an even better character the higher you go in terms of memory chaos stages. And as of right now, in the mono quantum team, we've just been replacing the characters in the harmony slot with whatever the enemy is already weak to. But once we do have Sparkle, then this team will finally be complete. And I think one of the things you take into consideration is Sparkle is not a must-pull character. That's because you have been currently just swapping the harmony characters, as said previously, whatever the enemy is currently weak to. So Run May coming out, we'll finally have a harmony character that can fill in the slot and still have that element that the enemy may be weak to, allowing you to have a 100% chance of applying that quantum weakness to the enemy. But I do believe there is one thing that Seal still does currently struggle with. That's the fact of the matter is skill points, the higher investment you have on this character. If you do have a lot of investment, you do kill enemies and you get additional turns. And while doing so, you burn so many skill points. So having Sparkle, and if she was a character to apply skill points to the team just like Hanya, would be a huge game changer for anyone that has this character. But I still wouldn't say that she is a must pull, only Silverwolf, because she literally enables the composition, whereas Sparkle doesn't enable the comp, but rather make it much better. But honestly, I feel like I'm speaking gibberish because I still am going to treat Sparkle as a must pull, but that's for me specifically. That's because I do enjoy this team composition. But when I say must pull, I mean in the sense of enabling comps that aren't otherwise enabled by other characters. Think of Kafka for dot teams, a must pull for dot teams. Think of Topaz for Falba teams, a must pull for the Falb playstyle. And not having those characters means that playstyle is a lot less viable. You need to have some of the characters that enable those certain types of compositions. So there you have it. That's the beauty of Soulwolf. She has so many comps she can fit into because she's a very flexible character. And the fact of the matter is we're receiving a free limited 5-star. And if you already have Soulwolf, she's going to be one of the best characters to use alongside that character. So I think that is huge for many players across the board. They have invaluable synergy, just like Seal and Soulwolf, for instance. But I would say that those two characters' synergy is much better because they can utilize these debuffs more than Soulwolf and Seal, for instance. But they are still amazing when it comes to damage output and enabling Seal to do as much as she can because her kit is literally based on the enemy having quantum weakness. And that's pretty much it. Must pulls are literally characters that enable the comp. If that character doesn't enable the comp, then they're not a must pull. They're simply a much better option than pre-existing options, if that makes sense. So Sparkle isn't a must pull, in my opinion, but I'm still going to treat it like a must. Thank you for watching, and have a nice rest of your day. Peace.